No more touching the mic. If you got
Yeah,
this, go, Ann, 1 second. If you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition of Called to Coach. We're in Sydney today, Sydney, and we will get started here in just 1 minute. If you got this live on YouTube or on Google Plus, you'll want to catch us on our live page. Head over to coaching.gallup.com/live. If you're new to StrengthsFinder, you have never heard of that. I hard to believe you haven't, but maybe you haven't. You can head over to the Gallup Strengths Center. Just go to gallupstrengthscenter.com. But we have lots of videos just like this one. So if you enjoy this one, we have 150 plus available for you on our coaches blog. Again, just go to coaching.gallup.com. We'll start here in just a minute. And everything looks good on this end. Do you have any other?
no, I was just going to mention the microphone thing, which I always find, yeah, touching the table.
Yeah, watch the table because we can hear all of that.
Okay.
So, all right, guys, here we go. Let me kick this off, and we'll 1 second here. I just need to get rid of this. Good. Here we go. Well, maybe not. One moment. Where'd my? Oop! I closed that. There we go. I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska, in the Gallup office in Sydney, Australia. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on June 14th, 2016. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talents of individuals and teams and organizations around the world. It's hard to believe it's 11 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone. If you have questions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window if you're joining us live, and there's a few of you out there that are joining us live. Most of all, if you have questions after, if you're catching the recorded version, and you have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, contact us at coaching@gallup.com, or you can use the contact page that's right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com. For all your coaching resources and StrengthsFinder training needs, you can also catch the video, both streaming and now downloadable audio for offline listening. It's available on your iPhone or Android device, or listen to it, watch it on YouTube. All the links to that are available on our coaches blog. That's just coaching.gallup.com. Ann Lingenfelter is our host today. She works as a learning solutions consultant with Gallup in our Sydney, Australia office. Ann, it's always great to see you. Never quite sure if you're in Sydney or Singapore. Good to have you in Sydney today. Welcome to another Call to Coach.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's always great to be here. I'm in Sydney today, and actually, I'm going to be in New York City in a couple of weeks, so I'm very excited to get back to the States. I'm going to come back and visit some family and such there, so looking forward to being stateside for a little while.
Are we going to see you at the Strength Summit, or are you going to be able to make it here for that?
Look, I'd really like to be there. It's undetermined at this point, but I'm working towards that, so we will see how that goes.
It'd be good to see you.
Yeah, fantastic. So, look, I want to tell you a bit about my guests today, Jim. Jack Iverson and Jock Boyd are probably two of my favorite certified coaches, if I can say that, here in Australia. I've been working with them for over the last year. Both of them work for Think Education, which is one of the network schools of the Laureate International Network of Schools. Now, Laureate globally has about 80 campuses across the world and about 1 million students all up. And Jack and Jock came to Sydney and got their certification, their strength certification, and we started working together over the last year to bring strengths into some of the campuses that are scattered across Australia. It's been an extraordinary experience. They are super passionate about strengths, and they have a very powerful story to tell in just talking about establishing pilots and trying to bring strengths into the campus and why they did it and how it's worked, and some of their challenges and certainly some of the benefits. So really looking forward to exploring that with them today. So guys, Jack and Jock, thank you both for joining. I'm going to pass it over to Jock to start. Just if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, tell us a bit about what you do and what your top 5 are.
Hello, my name's Jock, and I'm a teacher for Torrens University Language Centre. My top 5 strengths are intellection, input, learners, ideation, and strategic. Now, the strength that really resonates with me is probably learner, as I've had 3 major career changes in my life. I started off being a zookeeper, and I got very interested in conservation, and of course then I got very interested in satellites, as you would, because they're really cool. So I went and did an MPhil in that, and then I got interested in communicating science. So I then did a master's in science communication, and then I got interested in education. So I became a teacher, and then I did a master's in the science of learning, and then I got really interested again in strengths, and now I'm doing a PhD which involves strengths and leadership. So learner is a great trait that I resonate with all the time.
I like the fact that your interests have been so varied and broad, and obviously with input, learner, and ideation, intellection, input, learner, and ideation. You've got a lot of strategic thinking themes there. I also like the fact that you are really across all of the coolest technology that's out there, and you always have amazing ideas as to how you can utilize that technology to get strengths out to students and have really cool experiences. So that's definitely something we'll explore a bit more today. Jack, can you do the same? Tell us a bit about you.
Sure. Hey, my name's Jack Iverson, and I'm the head of academic studies for APM College at Torrens University, so still part of Think Education. And my top 5 are developer, achiever, positivity, ideation, and intellection. It's a strange one for me because, when I got involved with the Gallup stuff, I wouldn't have been able to pinpoint where all those things lived for me. But, retrospectively looking back on my careers, I was a chef for a long time, and I was a musician for a while. And retrospectively looking back, I see it all over the place, especially developer. My big thing running kitchens was teaching apprentices and kids how to succeed in the business and to learn the things that they needed to do. And I'm a disgustingly positive person, so which is a really useful characteristic, I think, when you work in close quarters in very sort of tight deadlines and all kinds of adrenaline flying around and all that. So, and the other thing is that achievers all over the place too for me. I really love getting things done, and I love challenges and things like that. So the Gallup profile for me, once I connected with that was an amazing experience for me, and then there's no looking back.
And that's the strange thing, is that our strengths kind of complement each other. Jack likes to get stuff done. I like to think about it a little bit more. So he drives me along the path, but I tend to maybe find a few extra paths that we can try out.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And you two were really, at least from my experience, sort of the chief architects of what was happening at then Think Education. I'm sorry, I keep referring to it as Think now. It's really more Torrens, right? That the umbrella that you're really working under. But I think for you guys to be able to take us on that journey with you and talk about what happened, why did you guys decide to do a pilot? What was the aim of the pilot? What was the why of the pilot? And how did it unfold? So that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll start off there if you want.
Sure.
I was contacted out of my job, or actually seconded out of my job, to manage part of this project called Project Delta. And one of the value propositions of it was to introduce the idea of career coaching to students. So, career coaching in terms of how can we sort of walk you through the things that you feel like you might like to get to at the end of your sort of academic career. And one of the big parts of the career coaching setup was, well, let's try out this Gallup tool and see what it looks like for the students. There were several other things too. Big ideas around digital networking for students. Big ideas around soft skills applications. Lots of big ideas going on in this sort of pilot. And so they approached me around the end of last May, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And it was actually really funny. My boss Sam came up to me and she said, I've got something for you. I really think you're going to like this. And I said, okay, that sounds great, Sam. What is it? And so she kind of gave me a rough idea about career coaching and how we needed to get a platform set up and all the things that I've just kind of talked about with you. And then she said, oh, and by the way, we've got 3 weeks to do it. And so I kind of sat back a little bit and I said, well, do we have any money? And she said, yeah, you got money, and you can pick your teams and you can do all this kind of stuff. And I said, all right, can I just have a day to think about it before I actually plunge in? Because even though I'm not the most reflective person, I actually had to think about this one for a little bit before I jumped in. And so the thing that I thought straight away was, all right, well, I need some ideas, people, if we're going to do this quickly. So I naturally thought of Jock. Jock and I had done a lot of action researches before, specifically around the peer support networks.
Yeah.
Uploading platforms, a couple of platform-based things that we used to trial within Moodle, but also within Blackboard as well. And so I thought about Jock instantly. And yeah, then things just were, it was so chaotic those first few weeks, wasn't it? You know, from getting the platform in order, we had a couple coders that we plucked out of their normal day jobs and asked them to help us build this really dynamic looking shop front in Blackboard, which you generally, I don't know if for anyone that uses Blackboard, it's a pretty sort of stolid environment. You know, it's not very dynamic. But we got some real good coders in there, and we created a little bit of modern website design. And things just kind of took off from there, Ann, to be honest. Once we got the Gallup piece involved, with 2 weeks to go, I don't know if you remember this, but we put 3 coaches in the Sydney coaching program, and they were actually finishing up their coaching program as the pilot was just starting, and we were rolling out the codes to the students. So it was very chaotic, but it was also incredibly gratifying at the same time, because I didn't know if we were going to make those timelines at first, you know. But then Jock came on board, and we started monitoring the students and trying to put the students in the right places. Jock specifically was helping me coordinate the student coordinators, which was very, very handy, because we had 4 kids that we were paying them to just try and bring some order to all this chaos that was swirling around this website, which was great. But then it really settled down, didn't it? Once we got past that first 3 weeks, I think.
The best thing about the pilot was that we were told that we could fail, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, not that the expectations were low, but it was a pilot, and you're allowed to fail those types of things. And I mean, at first I was kind of skeptical about strengths, coming from a hard science background. But as I read more and more about the psychometric testing, and then just the huge numbers of people that go through this testing system, I thought there has to be something there. And I know that our students are really disengaged often, not with just their course, but their whole career aspect that they have. So I thought that something really has to be done, and this pilot was a perfect chance.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, just one more thing, and the thing that was also really interesting, you talk about engagement. You know, a lot of our students, to give all of the audience out there a little bit of understanding about our organization, you know, we have roughly 10,000 students in Think, spread across different verticals, and probably 60% of those students are online. So we do have actual campuses, and just like a traditional university environment, but it's that online space where we really feel like we need to attack that engagement issue and really see if there's things that we can do to bring those students into the fold. So yeah, I agree with you. In that engagement sense, it was absolutely massive.
I actually love what you said, Jock, about the permission to fail. And some of the conversations I've had with the most disruptive people I've met in different organizations talk about the need to have KPIs for failure almost. Actually, in order to be able to really push the envelope and try something new, you've got to be able to say, how much risk am I taking here? And it's fabulous that you were given sort of the okay to do that. So that's a big tick. The second question that takes me to then is how do you measure it? How do you measure whether you're succeeding, whether you're failing? You know, what sort of assessment came on the end of it?
I can start that. You can finish that one if you want. So the pilot had basically 2 iterations. So the first one was just about getting students in and seeing who went from the program from beginning to end. You know, so we reached out to 80 students in the initial cohort. 60 of them went through the actual program, and I think 38 of them actually finished the program. And the program had certain touch points that, you know, the students had to do their Gallup survey. They had to complete 3 online profiles. They had to do some things like give us an elevator pitch. They had to have 3 coaching conversations. It was quite intense for the students. So in terms of measuring that, though, we had almost a 50% uptake from the beginning to the end, which, you know, is, considering that the timing of it came sort of out of nowhere for the students. It was in week 3 of their academic cycle, you know, so for them to just come in week 3 and with not much context behind it, that's a pretty good completion rate. But just secondly, on top of that, then we tried the pilot again the next trimester, but we tried using it as an incentivizing tool which means we generally have hundreds of students sitting in the pipeline that we're actively recruiting to or marketing towards coming into the school. And these 800 students that were in the pipeline at that stage are all at various stages. They've been contacted through expos, hot leads from other providers. We used to have a relationship with Seek, for example, Seek.com, which is a job site here in Australia. So anyway, out of those 800, we just cold sent them out the code. Here you go. We're using this as a piece of collateral for you. These are the kind of things that we like to do for our students. And out of those 800, we had 68 just unsolicited people come in, do the survey, and out of those 68, we converted 48. So that's a pretty good ratio.
Wow.
The ratio was quite profound.
Yeah.
So we got really, really good results. And I think it told us that there was a lot more to the Gallup equation than what we had thought initially.
Mm-hmm.
What about completion? Was there anything that because we can't really measure the end bit, though, can we?
No, we can't. But I mean, when we started to coach some of the students, there was that student Jamie, who came from the army. He was going to do fashion design. His biggest strength was command, and talking to him for the hour, and then touching bases again. He got so much out of that coaching that it just made you think that there must be some sort of success going on with him, because he was such a great student, but coming from a very unusual place and going to another unusual place, which surprised me. But when you spoke to him about his strength, it wasn't just his career that he was looking at touching, but also his personal life.
Yeah, I agree.
And that, to me, is what success is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like when you started the pilot, it was about impacting students who were trying to make their career decisions and career, having some resources for career advising. Then it sounds like it morphed a little bit into, oh, well, here's an added benefit of attraction, because you're going to the students in the pipeline and saying, can we bring you guys in? And and that was an impact. What were some of the other whys that sort of surprised you, became benefits of doing the pilot, or perhaps were intentional, where you said, you know what, let's try this, let's see if it impacts this? What were the other reasons?
I think when we started doing some of the team coaching situations, when we get the 10 or 20 students into a room, and they suddenly have this shared language and this shared vision, and it's from that they started to build a community, and it's from that the engagement, not just of their course, but the belonging to the college that they belonged with. I mean, like being online, the hardest thing is finding somewhere to belong, because the space doesn't actually exist. You're on Blackboard, which is a great LMS, but you wouldn't call it home, and they don't have somewhere where they can all meet. But through Strengths, they started Facebook groups and all of those types of community things. That was a big shocker for me.
Yeah, I agree. And that common framework is really the thing that we kept going back to. It was surprising with the students when we would do the model that we basically used was we would try and reach as many students as possible. At first, we would do group setups. We used this conferencing tool called Zoom. So we would have up to 15, 20 students in there at a time performing these synchronous events, and it was really, really powerful, because a lot of the time when you do these, and I know a lot of people don't teach online. It's sort of a new space, but just to give you a little bit of an example, when you do some synchronous events online, oftentimes what will happen is the students will come in and they'll just be observers, right? Mm-hmm. They'll kind of watch, but they don't want to engage. They don't want to come in and they've all got different reasons for not wanting to engage, and that's fine. But when the students started hearing other students talking about what made them tick and who they were, they all of a sudden they wanted to talk about it. They had that kind of common piece of collateral. They're saying, "Oh wait, I'm an achiever too. Let me talk about that for a second." And all those kind of things were really, really powerful. And the other thing that really impressed me, that I was really scared about at first, was when we were testing the StrengthsFinder at first. So before we did the first pilot, I think we put maybe 25 people through StrengthsFinder. just to kind of see how it resonated, to see what the collateral looked like, to see how the organization felt about what it was saying. And everyone thought, wow, this is me. And just about everyone had maybe one thing that they didn't understand, which, you know, the coaching would later unpack for people. But the thing that we were nervous about was, okay, all of us that have done this assessment, we've been in professional contexts, we've been in our life, and we've had experiences that have made us who we are today. What's this going to look like for an 18 or a 19-year-old kid, you know, who maybe doesn't have that wealth of experience to draw upon? And just the way that they responded to it absolutely blew me away. You know, the way that they connected with certain elements of their top 5 was just, that was really eye-opening for me, and to this day remains probably the most profound piece for me.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I was just last week. I was in Singapore at the first ever Strengths in Education Summit that was being held there, and I watched students who were 15, 16, 17 years old, all from different schools, coming together and doing workshops, and they didn't know anything about one another. They didn't know each other's names or anything because they had never met before. The only thing they knew was their top 5 strengths that was on the lanyard around their neck. And they came together and workshopped solutions to problems and challenges, and it was like they knew each other forever. And just based on those top 5 and that aspect of relational shorthand that we talk about, that is such a great value of strengths, and just having that common language, I think, is really, really powerful stuff. And it always surprises us when we see it, because we don't believe at what depth it's going to be. But it is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting you say surprise too, because it's enervating. You know, like every time you see it, you are surprised. Why does that still continue to be surprising? I don't understand it, because it feels predictable in the sense that people are going to connect with it. You know, so I think
definitely.
I agree with that 100%.
So when you're looking at an online student body and you're trying to come up with ways that you can scale all of this, if you can't just do one-on-one coaching and you're trying to figure out how do you reach these 10,000 students that you have, tell me a bit about the sorts of activities you did. I mean, how much of it was organic? How much of it, happened with the students themselves? How much of it was events that you formed and created? Which ones were successful? Which ones not so much? That sort of thing.
I can start there if you want.
Yes, please.
All right. So the model that we've been using, the model that we're using now is we try reaching students at orientation. So it's a logical place, right? But because when we were doing the pilot at first, the timing of the pilot was quite illogical. At week 3 of a cohort, students have already connected with their classrooms. They might have already formed some relationships, which is fine. We don't want to stop them from doing that. But I think the logical point is when we catch them at orientation, when they're coming into either a physical campus, or even we also have an online orientation as well. And so we try and catch them there, and we organize basically strength sessions. The first one is just a really introductory session. We have the students do their top 5. We go through a couple little exercises with them, where we're going to show them about what their strengths looks like and how they can understand what it means a little bit. And then we try and scale it out into a larger scale sort of group session. And in that session, we kind of drill down a little bit more, especially with the, naming and claiming and aiming.
But it's so strange, because we have a thing that we use called a mold, and mold means more upload, less download. Yeah, so we want the students to actively take part in what we are doing. If we're going to talk to them about our stuff, then we fail. They have to be asking us about it. Yeah. So we have to get them to do things like do a sketch of your top strength, take a bad selfie. These are all things that engage the students that little bit more and get them to trust each other and get involved in other space.
Yeah. Bad selfie is a great one, actually. That was one of the things that we did in the online orientation space, where we basically say to the kids, all right, here's your spot, here's your code, go do your top 5, but we want you to come back, put your top 5 into this forum, this online chat forum, and we also want you to upload a bad selfie, right? And just basically saying to them, all right, put yourself out there a little bit, be a tiny bit silly maybe, but also show us a little bit about who you are. And the response for that was absolutely astonishing. There were some bad selfies, but so many of them. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was so strange that they would all take that risk.
Yeah, super cool. That was great. And that was, but in terms of scalability though, and just So if you think about it, we're kind of thinking about like a pyramid approach where we try and reach as many students as possible at the beginning, and then sort of funneling them into smaller conversations later in their sort of academic career. So from Delta last year, which is a year ago, so 3 trimesters ago, I've now got students that we're coaching, for a second, sometimes in some cases a third time, and we've got time to, as they're moving on in their journey, that we can create a little bit of time for them, right? Because they've connected with it now. They're an engaged student. They're not going anywhere. And so for us, I kind of feel a little bit of responsibility to them to make sure that we can enable those sort of more intimate conversations later. So I guess we're casting out a wide net at first, and then trying to narrow it down into smaller conversations later.
And that's where as well we can pair strengths, isn't it? We can show them that the learner strength and the ideation strength can sometimes work together, but they don't always work as a team.
Exactly right. And just within that, it's so much easier to take a student that started with you and you have that conversation, and then when they come back to you, you can show them examples of their own work where you can say, okay, look, how did you do this? Why did that happen? How do you feel like you got to that place? And that's what really gives those coaching conversations real power, because they can start to connect the dots themselves about how they actually reach that place by leveraging their own talents, So it's not the most scalable. It doesn't sound the most scalable at the end, but it is, because we're starting big and then narrowing down as we go.
So a couple of Yeah, definitely. It does, and I can understand that, because I think one of the things I hear a lot from educators that are using strengths successfully is it's not something that you can force anyone to do. It's something that those who are interested, those who have who for whom it resonates, those are the guys that you should keep on working with, and that's great. And if somebody's really resistant to it, it's not something that you can sort of jam down their throat, so to speak. So the way that you guys approached it was you got what, 10 coaches certified, something like that, and that needed to be working across, 6 campuses or something, around that, roughly?
4. We were dealing with 4 campuses with those 10 coaches, but we're expanding all the time. I think we're up to 7 or 8 campuses now, so yeah, it's a constantly changing sort of landscape there, but yeah.
So how do you once those coaches go back, they get certified, then they go back to their own campuses. Tell me about the challenges that they have when you have multiple campuses and you're spread apart, and also some of the lessons that you learned through that.
One of the things is I think that you have to keep in contact with the other strengths coaches. So you have to really build some sort of community of practice, be that on a line, be that coaching each other regularly, I think would be a great idea, so that we're feeding back on the strengths that we feel that we have, and how those strengths are contributing to the coaching that we are doing. So I think that's very important. It has been a difficult challenge when people are spread out all over the place, from Melbourne to the Rocks, Ultimo. They're all places around Sydney and interstate where our coaches are found, and it has been a challenge, but you've really got to work at that aspect of it, I think.
Yeah, and I think the challenge has not just been about the mechanics of enabling it, but some of the challenges within our organization as well. We're kind of going through a pretty dynamic time, and so for us to sort of superimpose other changes on top of other changes that are taking place sometimes isn't greeted with the most enthusiasm. But sure. I think the way that we kind of pulled it off in Sydney would be something that we would try and emulate in other states down the track, right? So we had two coaches per campus in Ultimo, which is on the other side of town, and then the Rocks, which is just underneath the Harbor Bridge in the city. So in those 2 campuses, we had coaches in both of those spots, which were dealing primarily with business students in one location and design students in another, but we mirrored the same tactics in both areas.
And yet they were very different students. The design students bought into strengths straight away, but and so did the business students, but they did it in slightly different ways. It was odd seeing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Ann, sorry.
If you were to give tips to other educators that are out there that are considering rolling out pilots, what would you say to them? What were some of the successes that, besides the ones that you've already touched on, that you would say, oh, look, this worked really well, I would definitely do this again, and then perhaps the opposite, which is learning lesson in this situation was I wouldn't do that. Any specific tips that come to mind?
Sure. I mean, I can think of a few. The thing that really jumps out at me the most is that don't underestimate the enthusiasm for the students and the Gallup profile. It's pretty amazing. When we were first getting into it, we hadn't considered how much resourcing we were going to need to enable the coaching conversations at first. And so the first pilot that we rolled out, we had 3 coaching conversations per student in this sort of condensed period of time, which is great for the students because they really love the conversations. They gobble it up. But being able to get those things done in an already congested landscape, all the coaches that we were using had prior commitments, which means, in effect, they had their day job that they were working on at the same time as doing coaching, right? Mm-hmm. And those kind of things, we tried tackling that by enabling coaching conversations at night. We paid people extra to try and take on extra hours and things like that. But I mean, that was the biggest challenge for us, was just being able to roll it out. We had great infrastructure in place. We had a really good plan about the way that we were going to talk to the students, keep them engaged. But it was actually enabling the coaching conversations at first that was probably the most difficult part. And I know that sounds like it's a scale issue, but it's a little bit more complicated than just saying it's a scale issue, right? What it really is, for example, if we had less coaches but more dedication of time, we would have been able to do all of those things. So I guess it's really about, speaking from my experience, it's understanding what a budget cycle looks like, the way that you can use that budget cycle to inform your hiring choices that you're going to use to enable the pilot, and then keep it supported as you go on. Because for me, I was a bit naive about what budget cycles looked like, and understanding that when you build something into a budget, it means you're going to have it in the next budget, and the budget after that, and the budget after that. And I think that's one of the things that often gets overlooked in pilots, is that you really need to forward think about what the outcome of that pilot that you want is. For us, the outcome was, we want to build in more resources so we can keep enabling these coaching conversations to happen. And so that bit of foresight, I think, is really good advice for people. What about you?
I also think that we ask students to take ownership of their own learning all the time, and I think one of the things that we could be looking at as well is students taking ownership of their own strength coaching. In a way, they still need the strength coach, but they should be taking the things that they learn from those sessions and developing them more within their coursework, and within the things that we ask them to do. So we would like them to be more engaged with their strengths outside of the coaching. Yeah. And you have to set them up with things to do, and then give them feedback on those things. And they should be commenting about everybody else's things that they are doing, which sounds a little bit confusing, but that's the type of thing I think needs to take place. And
I can actually, and just to expand on that a tiny bit, one of the other really large challenge is, how do you get that coaching conversation to translate into the actual classroom itself? And that's a larger piece. One of the things that we're working on now is, how can we have these sort of coaching training sessions with our lecturers so they can understand what this language means to the student, and how it can then bring some meaning into the classroom for the student as well. And I think that kind of carries on with what you were saying a little bit.
Take the aiming and let them have responsibility for the aiming, and then come back and feed back to us how the aiming went, and then we can feed in again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a huge aspect of it, and really, it's in a corporate environment, we look at the same sort of situation, right? If we're trying to get the buy-in from all the powers that be, in a school, I think the importance of having faculty and staff that are on board, that are conversant about strengths and what the initiative is, what it's about, and how it can be linked what they're giving the kids in the classroom, or whatever their goals are. That's just a huge part of it. How do you get there, or what lessons have you learned as far as that goes in engaging faculty and staff, and the importance of that? What challenges? I mean, what have you found?
I would say strength coach the executive team straight away. Yeah. Get them on board and experience the whole thing straight away. Yeah. Don't give them time to find something else to do. Say, oh, you've been strength coached, we'll coach you tomorrow. Not next week, tomorrow, and get them done.
I think that's valid, to be honest. And you and I have had conversations about this. One of the things that we got really nervous about coming out of the pilot was how do we keep the momentum going? Because the feedback and momentum was just so profound in the first couple iterations, And I think that's probably one of the spaces where we didn't position ourselves exactly correctly, right? Because with that sort of executive, or whatever that executive level buy-in looks like, you can really take some of those conversations and move them further. We had some budgeting issues that we're still wrestling with today. We're working our way through it, but right now it's become a more organic process rather than a process that starts from the top and pushes its way down, which I think would be the ideal setup, really. Yeah. But I mean, I guess the thing is, like, we've established the why at a college level or an academic level, right? And we've done some work within teams. We've done the HR team, we've done student services teams, we've done a few of the academic teams thus far, and the buy-in's universal from all those areas, right? And so if the whole organization feels that way, it stands to reason that the executives would too. But it probably would have behooved us to have done that first, rather than sort of at the stage that we're at right now.
You know what I would love to see happen, guys, is I would love to, Jim, maybe you can make something like this happen somehow. I would love to see that your counterparts, Jack and Jock, at all of the other schools that are out there that have been doing this, because there's heaps and heaps of schools in the States that are using strengths in different ways. Love to be able to have some sort of webinar where we join and everybody talks about how they make it work and sort of workshop it. Wouldn't that be fantastic if we could get all of you guys in the room? I know being out here, and I mean, to be honest with you, you guys are leading the way in many regards as far as higher ed out here. So, kudos to you. Jim, I think Jim may have a question or two from the chat room. What are you hearing, Jim?
Yeah. So Leela asked this question: have you guys considered using the alumni? And I'm assuming, have you brought alumni or alumni services in when we think about strengths or strengths finder or some of those pieces? Has there been any involvement with alumni in this program?
That's a great question. For us at this stage, no, and it's only because it's probably not because there wouldn't be a connection there, because I'm sure there would. Our alumni network's pretty big, but it's just more that we've had to focus just on the matter at hand at this stage of it. And I talked before about what our resourcing looks like and the way that we can actually enable things. It's been a bit of an exercise just to keep it afloat right now in terms of all the other things that are going on. I mean, everyone, for us, we're also in the middle of a crazy content development scenario right now. So the people that I'm leaning on to try and help us do these coaching things are saying to me, I want to help more, but I just can't enable it right now. So alumni's there, it's in the back of the mind, but we just haven't gotten there yet. I suppose is the short answer.
You guys mentioned, go ahead, Jock, sorry.
No. I was just saying it is a great idea to bring people in from, they've achieved the goal that many of these students are trying to get at. They've gone through the system, they've found jobs, and now strength is helping them again,
Yeah, I heard you talk about that budget cycle, and what I heard is when you start your pilot, you said you were allowed to fail, but you almost have to assume you're going to succeed and get those budgets in early, right, for the next year? Is that kind of the lesson learned on that? Like, start asking, assuming you're going to succeed. It's better than waiting, because the money needs to be there for the next go-around, right? Is that what I hear you saying?
Exactly right. And it's actually, I was thinking when Ann said that, building in failure into our KPIs, it sounds so counterintuitive to me, but it's kind of true, right? Like, because if we can't make it part of that everyday cycle of our job, then it's hard for the people that we answer to look at those kind of efforts and figure out where that sort of effort's gone, But yeah, I think you do have to go in on the premise that you will succeed in some way or another. I think you have
and
to.
what do you lose if it does fail and you're not going to use those funds? It's better that they're at least ear tagged and available for you than if they're not, and then it's hard to make up for that after the budget's already been set. So it's one of those things going in. It's been a lesson I've had to learn on, especially if you're using grant funding. That in particular, you got to get way out ahead of those and just make sure you're involved. So I think it's one of those things, especially in the StrengthsFinder community, we underestimate of working in education or whatever is getting those dollars allocated. Leela also asked a question: what were the dynamics with the coaches themselves in terms of leaning into their strengths when they came together? You guys were kind of talking about the coaches you trained working together. Did they lean much on each other in the process of going through this?
Yeah, I had some great chats with Sarah about the coaching that she was doing, because there's always those unusual coaching events where you find a person who has conflicting strengths, and how can you then bring those conflicting strengths through to be a positive outcome for the students. Sarah's very organized, isn't she?
Yeah, very much
she
so.
has spreadsheets and Excel things, and she takes tons of notes. Me, not so much. So she's leaning on me to make me suddenly start to take notes and keep track of the students I coach more. So that's a great thing that Sarah's done for me.
And just also one thing that just jumped right out at me, Jim, we were really, really lucky, or Layla, we were really, really lucky in that one of the coaches that we trained, his name is James, absolutely fantastic, and he had a lot of experience in other coaching models before. And the thing about James is he's one of the most empathetic human beings I've ever met. He's very genuine. He's almost a walking embodiment of a hippie. I don't know what you call him, but he was an amazing sort of presence for everyone, because when everyone was kind of finding their feet in these sort of coaching conversations and trying to to learn what coaching looked like to them and how the role fit in with them, he was a very stabilizing presence. And I think one of the big learnings from him, for me, in terms of that dynamic, is it really is helpful to have someone with a fair amount of experience, right around the front with you, so that when you do have that kind of trepidation, and like James would look at Sarah and say, "Wow, she is so organized," and she would say, "Wow, Jack, your ideas are shooting all over the place, and Jack, you're busy getting things done." He kind of helped us channel a lot of that to work together a little bit more effectively. And I think that was really powerful and quite serendipitous, to be honest, that he was there.
Yeah.
So.
And I think on that note, we should actually find a way to have our global education coaches that are working in the same space that you are, sort of sharing their successes and their stories. I wish we'll have to find a way to have them be able to connect with you guys after they see this show. Because when you think about it, this did just start last year for you guys, so it is brand new. And one of the things that I experienced when I was in Singapore, and this is my hat off to these 4 certified coaches who came together to put on this Strength Summit there. When I watched what they were doing with these students, these guys have been working in that space for years and years, and they had an enormous amount of examples of ways they could connect top 5 to learning styles that they had for each 34. They had a list as long as my arm as typical ways you would see students that had those top 5 being successful in their studies, or the common obstacles that they would face. And it took years for them to work all of that out, and years of working with student clients. So if we could even share all of the great things that different people are finding in their own, experience with the folks like yourself who are bringing a new initiative out, we're all further along than we would have been otherwise. So I hope that'll happen on the heels of that, of this rather. Jock, I know for you have come up with heaps of interesting technology ideas that you are hoping will link strengths to the day in and day out. Can you share a few of those with us? Talk a bit about that. Love this stuff.
what I'm really thinking about now is that I've been doing my PhD in leadership in online environments, and what I've been looking at is setting up a chat bot. And I think it would be a fantastic idea to have. There's two types of bots. There's smart bots, which are like AI, so they're really clever, and then there's dumb bots, which are really just pulling out from a pool of information and giving the person the information in a conversational tone. So a way that a person can really engage with that information. So I'm looking at mucking around with a whole series of chatbots to try and create a strengths bot, so that your top 5, you can ask questions about your top 5, like how certain strengths may compete against each other, or how can I turn a strength up or turn a strength down. And the chatbot could draw on a pool of a bit like the great app that strengths are made, but would give it to the person in a much more accessible format, which would be good.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that one.
I do too. It's fantastic.
But I don't write code, so.
Well, we actually had a coach. Bots have become real popular over the last year or so, and so we had a coach ping me earlier asking for something very, very similar. And we have college interns that are on the campus. We've actually been thinking about it a little bit. It's a little harder with the material than you think. You would think you could plug some things in, and then there's information that it's been found in books and things, stuff like that. When you get involved in that space, it gets a little more complicated. I think it's a great idea to continue to connect people, although nothing beats a real person. So it's always great to get a coach in front of folks, as well as what you guys are trying to do, right? At the end of the day, is trying to get coaches in front of these students to help them make these really important decisions.
Yeah.
For sure.
And even just remembering, every day, some sort of gentle reminder, some sort of app that will link their day. What are you doing today around your strengths, or how are you going to link your strengths to what you're doing today?
And we have something coming like that, Ann. We do have something.
Cannot wait! I cannot wait. That will be fantastic.
We've got some new stuff coming, so we can't talk too much about it now, but in July we will be able to. So.
Well, that's brilliant. Look, I don't know how much time we have left. We're probably getting close, but guys, can you give me or tell us a little bit about sort of state of play as it is now? Just with sort of quick snapshot of where things stand now. We've reflected a lot on the pilot up to this point, but where do things stand now? And what's next? What's next for you guys?
I'm doing a study with the design team. So I've got a HAS and some
Head of Academic Studies
and some program managers, and so I'm strength coaching the HAS, and I'm getting the 5 top strengths for the team, and then I'm going to survey them and look at how the HAS's leadership style is reflected through his strengths, and how the team would like their leadership to take place, to see what strengths I could turn up or turn down within his top or her top 5. So it's kind of team coaching the whole team, while focusing on Scott, while surveying them lots and finding out what it is that they want from a leader, and find out how I can then manipulate that system a little bit through the technology that he delivers his leadership with in the online world, kind of thing.
Cool.
That's crazy.
What about you, Jack?
The other things, same kind of stuff. Jock's also helping me with a fair amount of coaching. We've just gone through the second orientation round, so we've got about, 40-odd students in the pipeline waiting to have coaching conversations. So once again, we'll start with a big call out, and then we'll try and scale it down a little bit. But other things that are working right now, we're going to be coaching the marketing department So we're trying to chisel our way back up to the execs. So we're coaching the marketing department on June 30th. Now we've got a 4-hour session set up with them. A couple more student services sessions coming up this trimester. So I don't know if you guys ever watched that show Silicon Valley, but we're trying a middle out approach, you know. So we're just going to keep coaching everyone in the middle and see how we go. But it's you know, the more exposure we get, the better it works. The more people that connect with it, the more ears we're going to get to the ground on it. We'll just keep plugging away, you know.
And we're also looking at how we can package our experience to give to other people. Maybe a blog or a web page or a book.
Yep.
We aren't sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
A webcast, a podcast.
Yeah.
Easier than a blog, I'm telling you. You can just sit down and talk about it.
Find one of these webcasts. We'll get involved straight away.
If I know somebody who does these things, I'll send them over to you to help you out.
Is there any final word, you guys? Any question I didn't ask that I should have? Anything? Any final words that you want to say?
Last words?
I am always skeptical about strengths, but I can't wait to start strength coaching the next set of students because it is so much fun, and I'm always amazed at how wrong I am about strengths every time. I think, oh, couldn't be true, and then bang, that student they are their strengths, and I go, oh, damn.
Every time, you know. But he's not kidding, you know. And I think that's the biggest learning for me throughout the whole thing is that how much fun it actually really is, right? Just having conversations with people, and you know, the strengths does act as kind of a pathway to people let their guard down a little bit, you know, and they show you a little bit of who they are, and it just leads to so many great conversations, and they go so many ways that you don't even know they're going to go. It's
and
great.
Coaching students is kind of like a fountain of youth, isn't it?
Fountain of youth.
Fountain of youth. You get in there with those younger students, and they start talking about dreams and stuff, and you think, I can do that as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's great.
Fantastic. Attitude is contagious, right? Some of it is that, for sure. Fantastic. Yeah, very good. Jim, anything else from your side? Any further questions? Any way that we can connect these guys with the educators that are out there that are doing it? How do they best share their contact details, and how do we get them all together?
Yeah, well, how do you guys prefer to be contacted? If you want to throw some information out there, if folks have questions or they want to connect with you in some way, what's the best way to do that for you two? For
me, I can always be reached by email, Iverson, Jiveson, @laureate.net.au. Any questions about my experiences, I'm happy to share with anybody. I can also be found on the Gallup coaching role
directory.
I think that's what it's called.
Coaching directory.
Yeah, the coaching directory. Sorry,
you're good.
Not the best.
That's at GallupStrengthsCenter.com if anybody wants to go out there and take a look at that. Jock, how about you?
Yeah, you can grab me on jockboyd@gmail.com. Nice and simple. Just Jock, J-O-C-K, Boyd, B-O-Y-D, gmail.com. I'm always there.
Yeah, very good.
I think you guys are on to something here in the United States. We have several universities that have gone strengths-based and have programs around those. There's certainly some something to look at there. I'm sure you guys have done that as well. We are starting the Gallup Strengths Institute in the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. I shouldn't say we're starting it. It's already started, and it's gone through its first full year. And some exciting things coming out of the research that we're going to do at the Institute there, as well as I think they've hired 40 or 50 student strengths coaches for next year. This is what's exciting, to see a whole university reached with student coaches. And so they'll get some training involved in that. Pretty powerful when you think about what could be done. Of course, we have a high school and college internship program here around technology, but they all get a solid dose of strengths while they're here. We talk about it all the time. There's no better place. If you think Gallup doesn't practice what we preach, we give ourselves a 2 or 3 dose full of it, and so these students get it. Like you guys said, it's a fountain of youth. I like hanging around these kids and talking about their themes and how we turn those into strengths, and so it's pretty cool at that age to see them just begin to flourish, right? When you see those aha moments in their eyes and they go, oh, that's what you're talking about. So pretty exciting. So guys, thanks for coming on. Great meeting you. And of course, we've got a community here, so keep connecting in, and let's figure out how to, either through the Facebook groups or through Twitter or through LinkedIn or through those groups, how to stay in touch. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strengths Center. I mentioned that earlier. GallupStrengthsCenter.com. Send us your questions or comments if you'd like to be a guest blogger on our site. We're taking we're taking suggestions for that as well. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the title of that, in the subject line of that. If you want to see what it's like to write a blog for us, just head out to coaching.gallup.com and you can see those there. Also on that site is the link to our Facebook group, YouTube page, iTunes, RSS feeds, iPhone, and Android apps. Tons of resources available for you. If you can't find something there to use, you're not trying, is what we say. And so we'd love you to take advantage of all those things that are available. Again, that site, coaching.gallup.com. Don't forget that we do have a summit coming up here. By the time you listen to this, it may be past, but July 18th, 19th, and 20th, 2016, here on the campus in Omaha is the Clifton Strengths Summit. It's going to be great. We have a whole bunch of people coming. We're really excited about it. Get information, CliftonStrengthsSummit.com, and if you missed it, start planning to come next year. We'll have another one again in 2017. Although they're going on all around the world, right, Ann? I mean, you guys, we got stuff going on everywhere. If you want to know how to become a coach or you have some interest in that, courses, courses.gallup.com gets you there as well. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it, and we want to thank you for joining us here, and we look forward to the next Call to Coach. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.